Today we are starting the third lecture of Senior 3 Physics, topic 6.04 and 7.08, the magnetic force on a current and a nuclear energy. Magnetic force. Whenever any current carrying conductor is placed within the magnetic field, it experiences a force on it, which is known as the magnetic force. Let us consider an example on page 162. Let us suppose a wire is held between the poles of a magnet. When the current flows through the wire, there is an upward force on it. The force becomes stronger if we need to check out the three factors to increase the force. Either we can increase the current passing through the wire, either we can increase the magnetic field by using the stronger magnet, or either we can increase the length of the wire which is present within the magnetic field. But there is one condition for the force, and that condition is that the direction between the current and the magnetic field should be perpendicular. If the direction between the current and the magnetic field will be perpendicular, then there will be an upward or the downward force. But if the direction between the current and the magnetic field is parallel, there will be no force at all. Now, for checking out the direction, we can use one rule, that is Fleming's left-hand rule. We can easily deduce the direction of the force on the current carrying conductor when it is placed within the magnetic field by using the Fleming's left-hand rule. Point the thumb as shown in the figure, forefinger and the second finger at the right angles to one another. Point the forefinger in the direction of the magnetic field from the north to south direction, and the second field in the direction of the current. The thumb then gives the direction of the motion of the wire, that is the direction of the force. Now, there are two rules from which we can use the Fleming's left-hand rule. So, whenever we will use this rule, we need to remember these two rules. The current direction is from positive to negative terminal, and the field lines always from north to south pole. One more point, that the Fleming's left-hand rule can only give us the direction. It cannot tell us anything about the magnitude. It can only give us the direction. Now, the turning effect due to a magnetic field. Whenever there will be a coil which lies between the poles of the magnet from which the current can flowing, or which is placed within the magnetic field, then we can say that there will be a turning effect on that coil due to the magnetic field, as we can increase the amount of force of the wire from which the current is flowing, which is present in the magnetic field. We can also increase the turning effect of the coil from which the current is flowing, which is present within the magnetic field, by increasing the following factor. The current should be increased, which is passing from the wire coil, by using the stronger magnet, which has the stronger magnetic field, and by using the more number of turns of the coil. Now, let's move to question number 1. There is a force, as you can see that on page 163. There is a figure and there is a force on the current carrying in the wire above. Which of the following statement describe the force correctly? As I told you, the force can only be either in the upward direction or into the downward direction. So, the answer for option A is B. Part B. What would be the effect on the force of using the higher current? Obviously, the force will increase if we are increasing the current. Part C. What would be the effect on the force if we are reversing out the direction of the current? Normally, if we are reversing out the direction of the current, there will be no impact on the magnitude of the force, but there will be an impact on the direction of the force. It will reverse. Part D. Using Fleming's left-hand rule to work out the direction of the force. By using this rule, you can easily find out the direction of the current carrying wire which is placed within the magnetic field. Now, moving to the new chapter, that is nuclear reaction. Before going into that, let me tell you something about atomic number. The number of protons in the nucleus of an atom of any element is known as its atomic number. And atomic mass now. The total number of protons and neutrons in the nucleus of an atom is called its mass number or its atomic number. Now let me tell you one more thing, that is isotope. Different atoms of an element which have same number of neutrons in its nucleus is called its isotopes. Now we are moving further to this chapter, and now I'm moving to the new concept, that is nuclear reaction. Nuclear reactions, it is the process in which one or more nuclei are produced from the collision between two atomic nuclei or one atomic nucleus and a subatomic particles. Now, nuclear fission reaction. The splitting of a nucleus of a substance into two or more fragments with the emission of huge amount of energy is called a fission reaction. So we can conclude that it is that reaction in which the higher particle or the larger particle will break down into its nuclei to make out its daughter elements. To carry out the fission reaction, a heavy nucleus such as uranium is bombarded by the slow-moving neutrons, and due to this, uranium will break into barium and krypton along with 3 neutrons and a huge amount of energy. This whole reaction is known as the nuclear reaction. But in nuclear physics, nuclear fission is either a nuclear reaction or a radioactive decay process. So decay means the breaking down of any higher or the larger element into their daughter elements or into their fragments. It is a decay process. Chain reaction. When uranium undergoes a fission reaction, in fission reaction, each nucleus emits 2 or 3 neutrons, depends on its size. These neutrons may collide with the other uranium nuclei and cause fission in them. Thus, starting from 1 neutron, 3 neutrons are obtained in first step, and then 9 in the second, 27 in the third step, and 81 in the fourth step. This process keeps on going. So it is a very short interval fission process. It starts in innumerable nuclei and a large amount of energy is released. This is called the chain reaction because it keeps on going. If the chain reaction is not controlled, it releases such a vast amount of energy, and that will lead to a tremendous explosion as an atomic bomb. But if this chain reaction is controlled, we can use this energy to turn out the turbine to make out the electrical energy. And for controlling such type of chain reaction, we need a device that is known as the nuclear reactor. Nuclear reactor can control the chain reaction because we know that very well chain reaction releases a large amount of energy. So this energy is in the form of the heat. If the chain reaction is controlled, we can get the steady outflow of the heat. This heat can be used to run a turbine for generating of electricity. A system used to obtain a controlled amount of heat from the nuclear fission is called the nuclear reactor. There are multiple major parts of the nuclear reactor: fuel, moderator, neutron absorber, and the coolant. Fuel. This can be used by the fabricated uranium. Normally it is commonly used as the fuel in the nuclear reactor. And it is used in the form of some cylindrical rods present in the nuclear reactor, as you can see in the figure. Moderator. It is the substance which slows down the speed of the fast-moving neutron. In nuclear reactor, graphite or heavy water is used as a moderator. Neutron absorber. Cylindrical rods made up of boron are used as the neutron absorber. These rods are called the control rods. By taking inner out, these rods are rate of the chain reaction. They can control the rate of the chain reaction. They can either increase it or decrease by stopping it all together. Coolant. The heat produced in the nuclear reactor is carried away by the circulation of carbon dioxide or pressurized water inside the core of the reactor. Then carbon dioxide gas or pressurized water gets extremely hot while passing to the core of the reactor, and then it is used to produce the steam. This steam can be used to run a power station for the generation of the electricity. Last but not the least, nuclear waste. Some nuclear wastes are very dangerous because they remain radioactive for the very long time. And one more thing, radioactive are those elements which emit multiple types of radiation spontaneously. And normally they emit 3 types of radiations: alpha, beta, and gamma. For example, strontium-90 and iodine-131 isotopes are easily absorbed by the body, so strontium becomes concentrated in the bones, iodine in the thyroid gland. Plutonium-239 isotope can be used as a nuclear fuel in the nuclear weapons. It is highly toxic. Breath in as the dust, the smallest amount can kill us. Waste from the nuclear reactor is taken to the reprocessing plant. Their unused fuel and the plutonium will be removed. The remaining waste will be stored with thick shielding around it to protect the humans or our planet from that radiation. Now, we are moving some questions from the book. What is mean by the nuclear fusion? Fission is the reaction in which the heavier nuclei breaks down into the fragments or into the daughter elements. And what is the chain reaction? The reaction which keeps on going, further increasing in its steps, is a chain reaction. Give an example of a controlled chain reaction. If the chain reaction is controlled, then we can utilize such energy to run out the turbine for generating the electrical energy. Part B, an uncontrolled chain reaction can lead us to the nuclear weapon as well. Question number 3. Give 2 reasons why the waste from the nuclear reactor is so difficult to deal with. Because it remains radioactive for the very long time and it is very toxic reaction. It is a very toxic radiation which can lead the humans to the death. Question number 4. In a typical fission process, uranium-235 absorbs the neutron, creating a nucleus which splits to form barium-141, krypton-92, and some neutrons. Use the data below to find out the number of neutrons in the nucleus of the uranium-235. As I told you earlier that the number of protons plus number of neutrons leads us to the atomic mass or mass number. So the mass number in part A is 235. 235 and its atomic number is 92. So 235 minus 92 can lead us to the number of neutrons in the uranium, and that is 143. Part B, barium 141. The number of neutrons in the nucleus that is splits, we know that very well. When the uranium breaks down into its fragments, it gives us 2 parts, that is barium and krypton. 141 minus 56, so the number of neutrons in the barium is 85, and 92 minus 36, that leads us to 56, which is the number of neutrons present in the krypton. We need to calculate the total number of neutrons in the nucleus that is split. So by adding 56 plus 85, that leads us to 141. But as I told you in the chain reaction that there are 3 more neutrons that emitted by the uranium nuclei. So by adding these 3 neutrons into the total number 141, we can get the total number of neutrons split out during the process, and that is 144. Part C, the number of neutrons given off by the fission, that will be 3 neutrons. Thank you so much.